guys, my name is Courtney and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm going to be going through my TBR shelf. So living far from home can be very difficult, especially when a lot of books are involved. For me, that means there's always this back and forth handling books. What I try to do is I try to keep all my unread books here at school, and because I spend the majority of my year here, it makes sense to only have those books here so I can read them. And so in my last book video, I talked about all of my 2020 reading goals. So for 2018 and 2019, my goal was really to get my TBR shelf down, especially books that I had had on there for a very long time. And I really succeeded. As you can see by this picture, this is what I had at the beginning of 2018, I want to say. And then these are all the books that I have since finished off of that TBR shelf. Now, since most of those books are read, it's time to make a new updated video talking about how my TBR shelf has grown in the past 2 years. Just so you guys know what I'm focusing on reading, what I have on my physical TBR shelf. And I do keep most of my books here, but I do have a couple exceptions of books that are on my TBR shelf at home. Basically, those are books that I don't think I'm gonna read unless it's summer, and just books that I'm not as concerned about reading because they're big leather-bound classic editions, stuff like that. So I have the complete Ernest Hemingway, or 4 novels of Ernest Hemingway, the Barnes & Noble edition. I've read 2 of the novels out of this, but I have not read For Whom the Bells Toll, and another big one, something felt Farewell to Arms. That's the other one I haven't read. Those 2 will get read eventually, but it's not my biggest concern. I also have the complete Sherlock Holmes. I did get a fair chunk of this read, maybe a fourth or a third of it read. I definitely read a lot of it in high school. There was a time when I was reading a lot of Sherlock Holmes, but I just haven't gotten back into it. So eventually it'll happen. But when you're reading story after story, sometimes you just kind of need a break from it. And then I have Reign of Gold. This is the last book on my high school freshman reading list because I kept that. And it's the only book I haven't read on there. It's a lot bigger than I thought it was going to be, and so I just haven't gotten to it yet. And then the last book I have on there is Property of the Rebel Library. This was a book I received from work. I had an internship last semester, my fall semester, and I was working at a literary agency, and they just gave me a good old pile of books, and I just took that one home with me and left that one there, just because I thought it would be a fun middle grade to read in the summer. As I go through these books, you'll see a couple of them are from work, and so since they are kind of not solicited books, I got them as a gift, they're not my main concern, but I do plan on reading all of them. I do have some other books around here, but I'm not going to be talking about them because they are books that I'm reading for this semester of school. It's the beginning of the semester, so I'm still waiting for them in the mail. Maybe I'll do a TBR of what I'm reading for school this semester, maybe I won't. But anyway, I know they're gonna get read, so I don't really need them on the TBR shelf. The first book I have on the TBR shelf is The Bitter Kingdom by Ray Carson. I am currently reading this, as you can see, so this will not be on my TBR shelf for very much longer. But let's get into the books that I have bought in 2019. That's pretty much what all these books are. Most of them are from 2019. So in my teeny ass apartment, I have a media unit, I have a TV, and I have my Switch and my Wii. I live in a studio apartment, but I have a whole area that is just the living room, I guess. So this is the only shelf I have, really. A lot of this stuff is not books because I have all the stuff for the TV, and then I have a box of my purses, a box of school supplies, a whole area of school supplies and books for school, notebooks and different things like that. As you can see, I really only have 2 shelves dedicated to actual fiction books that I'm reading. So let's get into these books. First off, I have Sword in the Stars. This is actually an advanced reader's copy. I know, I'm that cool. This is coming in April, so I have a little while still to read this. This is by Amy Rose Capetta and Corey McCarthy. This is the second book to Once and Future, which is a sci-fi space romp of a cast of characters who are all queer, and it's a King Arthur retelling with a female King Arthur. It's basically kind of a clusterfuck, if I'm being honest. It's a lot, and it's not particularly done super well in the writing and the craft, but it was fun. I got this second book, so I might as well read it and finish off the duology because it's only a duology. The next book I have is Two Girls, a Clock, and a Crooked House by Michael Poore. This is one of the books I received from work, so it is a middle grade. I know nothing about it. It seems magical, whimsical, fun, so I'm very interested in seeing what it's all about. Next, I have these pretty infamous books. I've had these for so long. I've only had them since 2017, but they've been sitting here for so long in my mind. I've just had them for so long. I read the first chapter of this and I was like, okay, cool. And then I just didn't finish it. So I have The Knife and Never Letting Go and The Ask and the Answer by Patrick Ness. These are books that I have to read and finish this year. It's gonna happen. The next book I have is The Picture of Dorian Gray by Oscar Wilde. I've been wanting to read this classic for a very long time, and so this Thanksgiving I saw these really interesting looking editions. I also bought Persuasion in this edition with this kind of cover, just because the copies of Persuasion are always really ugly. So I picked up this one as well because I've been meaning to read it, and it was like $5. I haven't had this on my shelf for very many months, so it's not a main priority, but I would like to get it read. The next book I have on my shelves is a definitely new buy, and that is Radio Silence by Alice Oseman. Pretty much I've been hearing about this book for years since it came out, and I've been wanting to read it since then, and I just haven't gotten it. It's never at the bookstore when I wanted to buy it, just all these factors. I like the new edition a lot better with the pretty illustrated cover, and I'm not particularly fond of this in like the paperback, but I was just like, you know what, I just really want to read this, I'm just gonna get it, and if I really like it, then I can go get a different edition if I really need to. It's like, I haven't read anything by Alice Oseman, but I trust her like wholeheartedly somehow. The next book I have on this is Permanent Record by Mary H.K. Choi. I'm kind of apprehensive about this book now. I absolutely adored Emergency Contact by her. It's like one of my favorite books. It's one of like my 5-star reads. Like, hearing the premise of this book and like hearing other people's opinions, I'm like very wary of it. I'm very nervous about this guy Paula, who's kind of having a rough time, rough on his luck, when this girl comes in who is a famous pop star and they like start a friendship romance with each other. I'm nervous. I'm very nervous, especially because I've been hearing Manic Pixie Dream Girls, and I'm just like, ooh. I'm gonna read it. I'm gonna get to it. I'm nervous. The next book I have is another 2020 buy, and that is Juliet Takes a Breath by Gabby Rivera. One of my favorite booktubers is Cece from Problems of a Book Nerd, and she never stops talking about this book. When they decided to do a reprint of it, I was like, hell yes. So I've been seeing this book around Barnes & Noble for a couple months now. I just finally suckered down and got it, and I have a very specific plan of when I'm gonna read this, so that will be coming soon. The next book I have on here is The Less People Know About Us, which is another book that I received from my internship. If I remember the premise right, it's a true crime novel where the mom steals the daughter's identity, like identity theft, but like in a family, and like all the problems with that. So sounds very interesting, and I'm very intrigued by it because I do really love true crime, like documentaries and stuff, so it's surprising that I haven't read a lot of true crime books. The next book I have is Leading Men by Christopher Castellani. This is about Tennessee Williams, and it's like a fictionalized version of his life, I believe. I have read a couple Tennessee Williams plays. I really enjoyed them. He's such an interesting person to me, and I've heard really great things about this. I got it from work, so I'm very intrigued by it. The next book I have on this list is Girls of Storm and Shadow by Natasha Ning. This is another book I've been meaning to read since it came out in November, and I just haven't gotten to it. It's gonna happen soon, but this is the second book to Girls of Paper and Fire, and I'm a little apprehensive about this book just because of what it is going to have to be now. You know, in the first book, it's all about this harem and escaping from the harem. So, spoiler alert, they escape from the harem. And so this book is just like, you know, going into expanding the world, expanding this war, kind of like, oh, we have to take down the society. What I loved about the first book is that it didn't, I don't know, it just felt different, and I don't know if I want it to go in the direction of like a typical fantasy novel. And so like I'm really worried because I loved the first book so much. I gave it 5 stars, and I'm really hoping that this is just as good as the first, but I have a feeling it's just gonna go into typical fantasy. We'll see. The next 4 books I have on here are Stalking Jack the Ripper series. I was so kindly gifted this series by a friend of mine, so I don't have the highest expectations for this series. What I'm expecting is it's going to be very heavily focused on like a brooding romance, angsty brooding romance. It's Victorian time period, and you know, it's gonna have this crazy fun mystery with twists and turns. So what I'm really looking for here when I do sit down and read this is just like a really fun time. Like when I'm really looking for something that is just gonna keep me entertained, that has like a fun romance, like this is what I'm gonna reach for, because sometimes, you know, you just want a fun time. You don't always need the highest end of literature. And so this is what I'm gonna pick up when I want that. But okay, my shelf is cleaned out. Those were all the books that I own. Like there are other books obviously in my mental TBR on my Goodreads TBR that I want to read, but I'm really gonna try and stick to these books and get my TBR shelf down to 0 at some point, or at least to like 5. That would be great. I am going to have a busy reading semester. This is like a semester where I have a lot of reading of like actual books, so definitely gonna have less time for this, which is a little bit sad, but I don't have that many books here. I only have like 16, 18. So definitely this is very manageable, and I'm very happy that my shelves are so manageable. It feels so nice. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. If you know anything about these books, have any thoughts or opinions, please feel free to tell me. Also, I'd love to know what is like on the top of your TBR pile right now. I'll see you guys later, and happy watching.